We are live now.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are audible, Anishadi.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar by Manav Zameen Foundation. Today's topic of discussion is understanding and dealing with abuse and its effects. I would like to introduce Mrs. Dufa Mukherjee Patru, one of the directors of Manav Zameen Foundation. She has been associated with teaching, administration, and entrepreneurship for the last 20 years. I would request her to say a few words about the organization.
Unmute.
Yuvadi, you need to unmute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Uh, Good evening, everybody, all the respected speakers and the viewers. It's a privilege to introduce Manav Zameen Foundation as a director to all of you today. Manav Zameen Foundation is an integral part of Psycomm Education Pvt, which was formed in the year 2012. Manav Zameen Foundation is rooted in a single ideology, which is maintaining wellness of mental health for every segment of the contemporary society, whether it is your regular general well-being or in education, studies, in domestic environment, in working environment, or professional well-being, we are there with you. We vow to lend our hands in every dimension possible for the mental welfare of all the people, regardless of age, gender, social strata, and profession. In a phrase, I can say, we keep our vision to address the varied psychosocial issues of the contemporary life. Manav Zameen Foundation has a distinct wing for special children and students with learning disabilities for the psychometric assessments, learning support, therapy, and other related interventions. Our major services include identifying, treating, and addressing mental health issues, wellness programs and workshops, providing creative therapies like art therapy, movement therapy, play therapy, music therapy, and so on. Alternative Education Institute for Special Children, which would definitely be a post-COVID endeavor. Let me now introduce to our team members, the Manav Zameen Foundation team. Dr. Shubarna Shin, she's a well-known face to many of you in Kolkata. By profession, she's a consulting psychologist, a faculty in the Department of Human Resource Management, Psychology, and Communication. She's a life skills trainer too. The key element of her introduction is that she is one of the founder directors of both Psycomm Education Pvt Limited and Manav Zameen Foundation. Atri Chakraborty is a practicing psychologist and visiting faculty at Neelratan Sharma Medical College and is the head of psychometric assessments at Manav Zameen Foundation. Anuma Modak is the coordinator of research and training at Manav Zameen Foundation. She's a psychologist and a telecounselor. Mr. Dipankar Shen was a sales and marketing professional at renowned corporate houses and is now the head of communication outreach at Manav Zameen Foundation. Ms. Ornishan Shen is a sociologist by profession and has worked in well-known social sector organizations. She is the head of social outreach department of Manav Zameen Foundation. We look forward to your support in our journey and we would appreciate your feedback or a word from you on our Facebook page. Thank you and have a good time with us.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would request Mrs. Onoma Modo to take it forward from here.
Thank you, Anishadi. Good evening to all dignitaries and participants. Our today's topic of webinar is understanding and dealing with abuse and its effects. So abuse is basically a situation in which a person is treated in a way that is harmful to them. Abuse can occur to anyone of any age and gender and from any walk of life. It can include physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse or exploitation, sexual abuse, and child or elder neglect or abandonment. There are many signs to identify an abusive relationship, which shall be dealt in due course by our speakers. So let me introduce our first speaker, Professor Dr. Bula Bhadro, an alumnus of Presidency College and University of Calcutta, did her MA and PhD from McMaster University, Canada, where she taught for 3 years as assistant professor. She joined She joined Department of Sociology, University of Calcutta, and taught for 28 years. At present, she is the professor and head Department of Sociology at Sister Nivedita University, Kolkata. She has been a visiting faculty in several universities in India and abroad. Her research interests and areas of specialization includes post-colonial theory, sociology of gender, sociology of childhood, and sociology of science and technology. She has published extensively on gender, childhood, and technology nationally and internationally. She is recipient of Professor D.N. Mojumdar Memorial Gold Medal as Distinguished Social Scientist by Indian Social Science Association in 2017. She is regional representative and secretary and treasurer of Sociology of Childhood since 2018. uh, she is regional representative and board member of the Third Committee on Gender, Women and Society since 2014 and secretary and treasurer of Sociology of Childhood since 2018 of International Sociological Association. She has supervised a large number of PhDs and recipient of several major projects by UGC, ICSSR and CDST, Government of India. She has been a resource person in enormous number of trainings on gender sensitization, human rights, parenting, child rights, and protection in police training and family counseling in Government of India, West Bengal, and Assam, and a number of other NGOs. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Manav Zameen, for giving me the opportunity to share my views with you all. Am I properly audible? Am I properly audible?
Yes,
Yes, you are.
yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. Uh, how many minutes we should talk in the beginning? 10, 8, 10,
10 to 12.
10 to 12. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, I'm very grateful to Suvarna Sen also for giving this opportunity to address an issue which is very dear to my heart. I consider abuse as a violation of human rights. Abuse generally occurs when people are treated with cruelty or violence, especially regularly and repeatedly. Broadly speaking, abuse is infliction of harm. On the other hand, neglect is a pattern of failing to provide for basic needs. Neglect is thus abuse through omission, of not doing something resulting in significant harm or the risk of significant harm. Emotional abuse, sociologically speaking, is the most common form of abuse because it is least talked about. For sociologists, whatever is least talked about, whatever is hidden, is considered reality because our understanding of reality is a complex one. From that point of view, emotional abuse is the most complex one among the types of abuse. Furthermore, to us, abuse is cyclical in nature. That means it often runs in the cycles. In fact, I'll take the help of one of the most famous American psychologists, rather social psychologists, Dr. Lenore Edna Walker, who founded the Domestic Violence Institute, documented the cycle of abuse, and wrote the book Battered Women, which actually received Distinguished Media Award in 1979. She talked about three phases of the cycle of abuse or violence. Because here she actually equates all sort of abuses with violence, emotional violence also. She thinks there is always a tension building phase in terms of abuse. That means tensions grow between people. Then there comes penetration, acute crisis, the real thing. If it is physical, physical violence. If it is other type of violence, emotional or something, then it exhibits, it's materialized in reality. Thirdly, then there is a phase of calmness. She calls it calm or honeymoon phase. Specifically, if it happens between partners, then it is like that. The husband is mad, then the husband beats up or inflicts emotional abuse and then becomes repentant and then tries to appease the partner or the wife, that is by giving gifts, taking to the movies, sweet talking, and etc., which is called calm phase or honeymoon phase. And then cyclically, it comes back again to tension building phase. And that's how Walker thought it's a cycle theory of abuse and violence. So cyclically, it goes through these phases. And if no intervention happens, the frequency and the severity of the abuse tend to increase over time and tend to increase in terms of manifestation, which are more ferocious emotionally and physically. Now, we generally know, all of us know, that there broadly we talk about six types of abuse: physical, sexual, abandonment, specifically in case of children and elderly, financial abuse, neglect, and emotional abuse. Um, I want to emphasize a little bit on emotional abuse because it is infliction of harm which is invisible and not measurable. Realistically, we cannot measure because we cannot see it. Those things which are not seen are quite difficult, but it keeps on happening. And what some of the signs we can talk about in terms of emotional abuse, which is, somebody subject to emotional abuse has some kind of inappropriate emotional development. Inappropriate means in contemporary terms, not in terms of that this is appropriate or not appropriate. Social withdrawal, loss of enthusiasm and interest, loss of self confidence or self esteem, which is the most important thing in an emotionally abused person. Of course, depression, and of course, avoidance of certain situations. Like the child which is emotionally abused in the school, lots of children do not want to go to school. The person who is actually treated badly in the workplace also doesn't want to go to the office. Or the person who is not really appreciated among friends, among peers, or in a public place, in a community gathering, does not want to join these places, withdraws himself or herself. And one of the most important thing is that emotionally abused persons, unlike physically abused person, because physically abused person doesn't often want this, but emotionally abused persons desperately wants attention and affection. What happens in case of emotionally abused person, that if they don't get this attention or affection, support in one word, often leads to suicide. And India is very high on suicide of women and actually from children from 14 to 24, young adults. And people who emotionally abuse other people are generally expert manipulators. We can go to this in terms of the questions or further queries. I locate three most vulnerable groups in terms of abuse: a group of women, a group of children, and a group of elderly. Why I said a group? Because not everybody, not every woman is subjected to the same kind of abuse or to the extent of it. And there is another category of abused people, those who do not actually belong to the so called normative understanding: transgender, homosexuals, gays, etc. They don't feel fit into the normative pattern which we have been, accepted as the standard in the modernity. Because modernity has always excluded a lot of people, tribals for that matter, and for that matter, transgender also. Sociologists call it long shadow of abuse. Actually, it means consequences of abuse. That means consequences will be long term, mental, physical, health wise. And if one person is abused in the family, that is, let's say, women or the mother, etc., it doesn't actually limit to the woman herself. It extends to the children and other members. That means there is some kind of an unease, discomfort in the whole of the family environment. So one person abuse doesn't mean, just the one person effect. It means also cumulative effect, maybe again invisible. And finally, it harms to communities, to neighborhoods, etc. And one of the most important long shadow, that is consequences, homelessness and death. Lot of people actually just go out of their home because home is no longer the sweetest one. It is the sourest one. So naturally, this particular understanding that we are home, we are safe, so on and so forth. We are hearing that also tremendously for the last 6 months. Is actually a myth and a very relative one. Some homes are of course sweet, but some are not that sweet. And then we come to power-based abuse, which is a primary motivator in the assertion of power, control, and intimidation to harm to another. And this is another game which is played in terms of the abuse, which is almost unseen, but there is a power play. I'd like to finish my initial position with a real life story, example, not story, real life example, which happened on July 29th in Rishra municipality in Chuchura district. And this was reported in a Bengali daily. So it's an open news. Municipal employees came to know in Rishra that there are 4 people living in a house who are COVID. All of them are COVID positive. So they have to seal the house. They came to the house, and out of 4, the woman of the house was really sick. She's symptomatic. The other 3, they are men. They are asymptomatic. So the municipal employee said that I'm going to take the woman of the house and hospitalize her. The husband immediately said no. Then the municipal employee was very surprised, said, why do you say that? She is symptomatic. Then he said no. If she goes, who is going to cook for us? So you take out of these 3, whether we are symptomatic or asymptomatic doesn't matter. Out of these three, you take one of us. Then the municipal employees were very surprised. They have heard, faced many hurdles, heard many things, but this was unexpected during COVID. So they said, no, we cannot do that. It's against the rule. We have to take the symptomatic person to the hospital. The husband said, no, she has to feed us. Then she locked his wife, and then took the key and will not give the key to the municipal employees. Then there was altercation, almost fist fighting. The municipal commissioner had to come and then inform the police. Only then the woman was released from the custody of the home, I would say, and was hospitalized and got the chance of treatment for being COVID positive. Now, I would like all of you to take a conclusion on your own. What kind of abuse you want to call this? Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
I thought you will say something more as well. So
You
you
want me
did
to?
not you did not actually take up your own time as well. Leave
Really?
out more. Ah,
Okay,
অতক্ষণ
then okay. How many minutes do I have left? Because I thought everybody should get a fair chance. That's why.
no,
But
everybody will get a chance, but you can. I mean, uh,
how
we
many
we would
minutes
love
I
to
can
hear.
take?
You can take 5 more minutes.
In that case, let's concentrate on the interrelationships in terms
Mm.
of abuse, which I haven't talked about because I thought there will be time short. 2 important examples, or rather trends, I have to point out. One is relation between parent and child, or caregivers and child, and other is of course between either partners, married or living together, whatever. Generally, what happens is in case of caregivers and children, it is automatically expected that the parents or the caregivers will give best of it to the child. Most often, this does not happen. And India is one of the country where 109 child sexual abuse happens every day, according to official Indian data, National Crime Records Bureau. This is the data up to 2018. And it actually increases child abuse. Not only sexual, but also neglect increases. Parents often consider child their properties, not as individuals with minds, etc. Most often we are used to tell our child or children that I know better than you. You are a kid, so don't talk. That is a negativity. It actually destroys the confidence and the esteem of the child in terms of becoming an individual with a mind of his or her own. But see, in our country, we take parenting as quite natural, either biologically or adoption, whatever. We think it is a natural one, it comes automatically. But parenting is a skill which has to be learned. So, huge number of parents are abusive. So, forgiving for saying this, a lot of parents may be here and may be feeling very bad, but sorry to say that lot of parents, caregivers are very abusive with their children and they do not think it is abuse. The fact of the matter is that they don't think it is abuse. They think it is taking care of, guiding them, which is more dangerous. So, in a way, when we talk about abuse of children, the first perpetrator are the parents. The second are the, of course, teachers in the schools. Some teachers in the schools are very discipline oriented. They think discipline and punish. They don't think disciplining in terms of as a part of life that you have to grow up, so certain things you must do. But they think discipline is your reward for not doing anything. So it becomes punishment. So in this way, if a child grows up with some kind of repressive atmosphere, the child not only is abused, becomes an abuser in all likelihood in his or her later life. So this is one thing we have to remember when we talk about abuse and dealing with it, that we have to first teach the parents how to become a parent. I know parents would really be mad because this is an insult to them, but don't take it as a prestige issue. You need to really learn parenting. So with the teachers, that they should learn how to talk to a child who hasn't done well and who teachers have a tendency to judge the student or the child in terms of marks, which is a very wrong way of doing it. It's a very mechanical measurement. We did it in modernity, and this modern type of education actually kills the so called energy, enthusiasm, and originality of a child. So that has to go. Now, it's a tall order, but if the teachers are conscious about this, it can be carried out. The other aspect is intimate partner violence. Our Indian society is a very patriarchally oriented society. Everything is judged in terms of male norms and patriarchal norms. So if the wife leaves, still, if the wife is the bigger earner, if the wife has more fame, or if the wife works more, then the other person, the partner, is often unhappy. I'm not talking in general, I'm talking about a group of abusers. So don't generalize and say that no, this is not true. This is true in case of a group of people who are both men and women. I'm not saying men only. They are actually enmeshed, embedded, or rather successful representatives of patriarchal ideology. So, in a sense, the intimate partner relationships, it starts with a patriarchal position that the person believes in patriarchy. Both of them may believe. So the wife might think the science teachers uh, in India had to leave their professions because they have to take care of the family. 37% women do PhD in science, only 13% can retain their jobs because the rest go and take care of the family. Taking care of family is the number one reason for the people who are in science discipline for losing their jobs or leaving their jobs. but not a male scientist does that. So that is why what I'm saying, if we start intimate relationship on the patriarchal norms understanding, then it is bound to be a suffering. And since I cannot call the Rishra incident that they were married, because then that is marriage, oh my God, then it is hell. So that's why I would not call some of the marriages, and lot of them in India are marriages or partnerships. I would call them hell. I think now, Suvarna, I have probably gone over the time. So I should stop with saying marriage is hell and then take it up, whoever wants to say marriage is a bliss.
Okay. Since I'm not the next speaker, so I can't even take it up right now. I'll be the last
No, you
speaker.
cannot take
So,
it up. Right.
yeah. Anama.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your enlightening thoughts. Now, next, I would like to call upon Miss Tapati Bhomik. She is working in the development sector since last 30 years. She heads the legal wing in Shangla. Her work mainly focuses on rescue and psychosocial rehabilitation and aftercare of the survivors of trafficking. She has conducted several research studies on trafficking for commercial sexual exploitation. She has been working with police, BSF, legal personnel, and judiciary for 3 decades. She is a nominated trainer of State Police Academy and Sharashtra Seena Bal, which is a border patrol organization of India. Over to you.
গুড ইভিনিং এভরিবডি। আমি জানি না বুলাদির আমাকে মনে আছে কিনা। আপনাকে প্রণাম, আপনার কাছ দিয়ে অনেক শিখেছি। ফার্স্ট অফ অল আই উড লাইক টু থ্যাঙ্কস মানব জামিন অ্যান্ড অন্বেষা to give me the opportunity to sharing my grassroots level of experience. I am working with the children who are sexually abused, and I am totally agree with that abuse the term. I don't know whether we have a common understanding of abuse. I have seen many children, especially the girl children who are sexually abused. They are trafficked. They died in our shelter home because the outburst of this abuse. And lastly, their destination either in the burning hut or in a graveyard, whatever. And lots of violence I have seen when we started our work as a member of Shonglap, my organization. Uh, that there is no act to protect the children, and Buladi rightly said that the emotional abuse or the verbal abuse, it is very difficult to prove that I am emotionally abused or verbally abused. It is not. It is very difficult to prove. So when we started our work in 1991-92 in the red light area, then it was little difficult for us to identify the what is the abuse, why where is the tool we can protect our children. Only there is no act, nothing is there. So we started on talking with the government and different level. Only we have Immoral Traffic Prevention Act, and it is introduced in our country in 1956. Then it is amended, and in 1986, this Traffic Prevention Act introduced in our country, and nothing we have to protect our children. I have seen in my working experience that mother sold their daughter in the prostitution. There are a number of incidents. If you visit the Shonagachi, and there is lots of Agrawalis there, they are coming from Agra. They are luring children from different poor family, and they look after the children as their own children, and when they become 13 years old or 12 years old, they are forced into the prostitution, and that time they come to Sonagachi or Mumbai Kamatipura or Delhi GB Road. So these mother, and sometimes they uh, put their girls in the prostitution who are their biological daughter also. So this is a very important thing I feel to address the abuse, because from this girl I have come to know that when they become 9 years and 10 years, they are tutored by their mother, biological or adopted mother, whatever the mother definition. They are tutored by by their mother, how to entertain the client, how they make happy the client. So how can we explain this kind of period as abuse? There is no law to address it. When they are in the brothel, when we rescue them, then we can put the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act, not before that. But the abuse started from 8 years or 9 years when they were under the tutor of their mother, how to entertain the client, and the mother is showing them the the porno, different kind of the picture, and different act, dancing, singing, that is not their extracurricular activity, that is entertained to the client. So how we define this phase as an abuse? And I have experienced when we registered the case, this period is completely silent, completely silent. Nobody asks. I am talking about the police or judiciary, the lawyer, the PP, the judge or magistrate or whoever who is dealing the case. They are not asked them what is happened to you. It is not their question. So I always feel these girls, children are in the abuse when they were lured, that is the first, and when they were tutored by their mother or others how to, when you will be in the prostitution, how to entertain, how to make happy your client, because I will gain the money. As a madam, as a mother, I will gain the money. So this is not only the picture in the Agrawali framework. Recently, we have rescued, not recently, before lockdown, we rescued some girl from Bokhali, where fathers sold their daughters in prostitution. I never think, but I never feel that they are very poverty-seeking people. They don't have food in their house. That's why they are selling their daughter. It is not true everywhere, because our lifestyle, our definition of survival, that is the food or shelter or clothes, that has been changed. Total, our attitude has been changed. I am not at all satisfied in a Lakme lipstick. I am now looking for the Revlon. So if you go to the remote village, because I am working in the remote part of the village of all over West Bengal and some parts of India, I have seen there is a nothing is there in the room, but the fair and lovely is there. So consumerism is the main factor. I think consumerism make the vulnerability, create the vulnerability, and from the vulnerability, the girl children are going to abuse. During this lockdown period, I rescued one girl, I think in the month of April, when the liquor shop was closed. The father was, I think at the time of Father's Day, when we observing, all of us observing our happy Father's Day, that time one 5 years old girl was raped by her biological father, because the father was looking for liquor and that was not available in the house. So the father first tortured, her mother, and after that, she raped her 5 years old girl child. And when I have come to know that this kind of thing happened, immediately I informed police, and with ambulance we rescued the child. And right now she is in our shelter home. But the most saddest part is in the lockdown period, we our mobility was restricted. We are stuck in the house, and some are taking this opportunity. And I am very, it is very sad to hear that when I have come to know that this girl, when she was taken to police station, and police just, lodge a GD, not FIR, nothing, nothing. So 5 years for the 5 years old girl, it is very difficult to explain what kind of abuse she has been faced by her biological father. And most important thing, I would like to draw attention of Buladi, that in this case, not only in this case, I have seen in many cases. Uh, 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 I think 1 years back, we received a girl child who was sexually abused by her stepfather and became pregnant. She delivered a boy child in our shelter home. In that case, I have seen our mother supported the father. Here also, I have seen the 5 years old girl when she is biologically raped by her biological father. Her mother is totally silent about this issue, and she supported her father, and continuously she was saying, till date she was saying, nothing has been happened. My husband is fine, my daughter is fine, everybody, everything is fine. But the medical report is saying that he is sexually abused. So this is the total scenario of our attitude, of our mindset. I am totally agree with Buladi when she was talking about the teaching of the parents, how they deal this kind of case if it is happened, because uh, more than 100 girls in our shelter home till date, as on today, there I think there is 97 girls in our shelter home. All the girls are sexually abused either by their father, or by the uncle, or by the any trafficker, or by the customer, anyone. But they are sexually abused. But my question is, where our law, Anesha, when sent me the our introduction part, I have seen that Manav Zameen addressed me as a legal expert. I am not at all a lawyer, but I can tell you that law is a tool, and which tool support us to protect our children. As I said, already said that when we started our work, there is no law. And after that, in 2000, our Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act, very, very important act, introduced uh, by our Government of India as a special act. And the most important part is they address the care and protection. But I have lots of reservation about this act. And all of you know, when the Nirbhaya Kanda happened in New Delhi, after that this act has been amended, and now we have a new act, that is 2015 Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act. But it's a care and protection. There is lots of lacuna in the definition of the care and protection. The children are totally divided in two categories: the child need care and protection, and another category, children conflict in law. That is one thing. The child who need and care and protection, this care and protection, the CWC comes under this, and the Juvenile Justice Board has come under this conflict with law thing. But one thing I would like to say, draw your attention, that I am not going to the Nirbhaya cases. But when we are talking the care and protection and the CWC, what I said, the CWC, the formation of the CWC, the 5 members are the equivalent to, first class judicial magistrate, all the 5 members of CWC. Who is going to appoint these 5 members? Who is going to appoint? The act is one, that is Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act, now 2015. And there is a two category of children. One is CNCP, children need care and protection. Other is CCL, the children conflict with law. And CNCP is, CWC is taking care of CNCP, and JJB is taking care of CCL. The 5 members of CWC, who is going to appoint them? Who are they? They are appointed by Social Welfare Department. Because we are talking about the care and protection. In our mind, there is a mindset that children need care and protection means उसको खिलाना है, उसको एक जगह दिलाना है. That's all. Nothing more than that. No mental health issue. Nothing is there. But when we are talking about the conflict with law, and JJB is taking care of it, the JJB is headed by one principal magistrate, and he or he is appointed by the High Court. So this is the difference. This is the lacuna in this act, that when we are talking about the care and protection, in our mind, that is care means feed them, give them some basic amenities, and give them some, some extracurricular if they want. If you go to the ICPS program, Integrated Child Development Scheme program, which is introduced all over India, and which under all the CCIs, that the child care institution are running, if you go through that act, mental health is totally silent. If you go to the government run home in West Bengal, there is a no post of counselor. They are asking support from NGO for the mental health issue. Yes, in the ICPS there is a counselor post, but I am not going into the detail what is that. So I have a very basic question to all of you, not all of you, but all the government officials, the civil society organization, the policy maker. What do you mean by care and protection? Are you mean that care protection means to feed them or provide them some clothes and basic amenities? The children who are trafficked and housed in the shelter home, irrespective of their sex, where is the position of the mental health? In this lockdown period, we have to establish the isolation ward, where the newcomers, the new girls, should be stay for the 14 days. There is a very limited scope to talk with them, what happened to them, but you will get a call from from different officials, government officials, release them. So the girls who are coming in the shelter home, they are not getting these facilities. The counselors are there, the social workers are there, caregivers are there, everything is there, but we are not getting the opportunity to address our mental health. I should mention about the act which is introduced in 2012, that is the POCSO Act.
Ma'am,
Yes.
May I interrupt? Sorry for the inconvenience. Actually, ma'am, we are over with 12 minutes. Can we get into the wrapping part?
No problem.
Thank you, ma'am. You can just finish, ma'am, the POXO Act you were saying.
Yes, I just wanted to say that we have POXO Act, and POXO Act is very important to protect our children and care and protection. But there also, there is lots of lacuna, and it is not totally implemented by our government machinery. The POXO court not yet established. The child friendly corner not yet established in police station, and there is a provision that that if a child feel she is comfortable with counselor or with her father, with her mother, they can accompany her, her or him, up to the court. But we have seen where mother is the perpetrator, mother sold the children, they are going to the court, and police is saying that she is comfortable with mother. So NGO role is very limited in the POXO Act. uh, we 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 are not in a position right now, to totally implement the act for the care and protection of the children. But I should say that this act is very important, and we should raise our voice how we can implement this act for the best interest for our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We were mesmerized by your words, but for the shortage of time, we had to stop you. Now we move on to our next speaker, Dr. Subarna Sen. She has completed her PhD in applied psychology from University of Calcutta. She has 30 years of teaching and administrative experience and is presently working as a guest faculty in various institutions of Kolkata like Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, United World, and many other eminent organizations. Dr. Sen has participated in various seminars and workshops as a speaker across the country, including institutions like NIMHANS Bangalore. She conducts training programs for various institutions and corporates across the country. She lends her service as a consulting psychologist and is the secretary of Eastern Zonal Psychological Association. She is presently a director of Manav Zameen Foundation. Over to you, ma'am.
Audio.
Shubhanadi, you need to unmute.
Sorry. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Anoma. And like everybody, I cannot thank Manav Zameen. Being an integral part of it, I can't thank myself. Or, okay, I thank all the other members of Manav Zameen for choosing me as one of the speakers, along with such dignitaries, especially Dr. Bula Bhadru. I'm actually in awe of her. I'm awestruck by her as many times as I've heard her. And Ms. Tapati Bhomik was also very, very relevant. And because of the topic that we had chosen, uh, I have a couple of takes on this topic. I mean, most of the things have been covered by both of them. You know, when we were talking about this abuse, when I was hearing others talking about this abuse, what first struck me was, during our school life, we used to we had to write essays. We did not have paragraphs like today. We used to write essays, and we had topics like uses and abuses of science in Bengali and English, in both the languages. We had such topics, and generally people used to prepare themselves to write about uses and abuses of science. Why I mention this is, when we talk about emotional abuse, trust me, too much of an use leads to an abuse. This not only stands true for mobile, for internet, where we always say that too much of use of internet leads to some of the abuses. It's not only about these practical or technical or gadget like things, it's also about emotions. Why? Too much of emotion, like if I think that I'm expressing too much of love for somebody, at a after a point in time, maybe I am unaware of the fact whether that love is becoming claustrophobic for the other person. So too much of any use might lead to abuse. That is something which we have to keep in mind. Now, having said that, what abuse means, Buladi had explained it very nicely in her way. According to me, I mean, psychologically speaking, abuse is a maltreatment of anything. That anything might be a physical thing, which might be beating. It might be sexual, molestation, rape, forceful sex, manufactured consent, anything of that sort. It might be emotional, which can have neglect, which can have humiliation, certain things in emotional abuse, certain things, we, especially because Buladi was talking about this uh, interrelationship between parents and children. Many a times, parents don't even realize that the terminologies, the words that they're using, might be very demeaning for the child, might be very derogatory for the child, and might actually pull the child's self esteem to the bottom level. Like when we, in especially, I mean, I definitely will speak in English because as much as Onoma had told me, we had registrations from international people as well. But I would like to use a couple of Bengali words, especially I've seen in my chamber also, I've seen Bengali parents very lovingly telling their children, God hope, which is whether I don't know. Some people might tell me that, ma'am, actually I love Gordhop, so I did not mean anything wrong. But when you're telling somebody, when you're comparing somebody to an animal, however strong animal lovers we might be, or we might claim to be, when people are compared to animals, they somewhat somewhere find it derogatory, because after all, human beings are rational beings, which the rationality part is the basic difference between animals and human beings. So that is something which is derogatory, which is demeaning. Now that is also emotional abuse. I might feel that I'm telling it very lovingly. And if I claim that I'm telling it very lovingly, trust me, men who tease women, boys who tease girls, they also claim the same. Very funnily. They say that when we are teasing, it's just fun. Certain item songs that we have in our country, I mean, the words, the lyrics which are used in those item songs are so derogatory. But then some people have told me, this is the fun. This is, and just in the song, this is fun. Trust me, it isn't. When things are used in songs, when things are used in films, when things are used in literature, we get used to it. And unknowingly, it gets into our system. It does not stay fun anymore. Those typically what we claim fun components accumulate and become very, very grave. So, abuse can be emotional. I mean, I will uh, emphasize more on the emotional part of abuse. Verbal abuse, maligning people, demeaning people. And another abuse, which I would like to mention, is self neglect. I consider self neglect also to be a form of abuse, self abuse, which is also wrong. In our cultural context, in the Indian cultural context, we are always taught to love others, not to love ourselves. Trust me, that is where we end up not loving anybody, because love starts with loving yourself. I'm not talking about narcissism, please. I'm not talking about being obsessed with yourself, but I'm talking about loving yourself. If we don't learn to love ourselves, we end up loving nobody. We might pretend that we are loving people, we might claim that we are loving people, but actually, deep down, we are very critical about everybody. Self acceptance is very, very important. So, self neglect is a form of abuse. And any one form of abuse can also lead to another form of abuse. As in, if I'm a person who abuses somebody emotionally, I might have the potential in me to abuse the other person physically, sexually, verbally as well. Now, these are basically the types of abuse, things which happen in and around us. Why? What are the factors that actually may increase a person's risk or chances of becoming abusive? One, the person might have gone through an abusive childhood, or the person might have seen abusive parents. Either the person himself or herself has been beaten up, or the person oneself, I wouldn't use he or her, sorry, I would use one, or the person oneself have seen the parents, either of the parents, being abusive to the other person. Wherein, when you stay despite being abusive, despite accepting or uh, what should I say, despite having to accept that abuse day in, day out, somewhere down the line, children start thinking that this is okay. This much is okay. During the daytime, my parents are abusing one another. At night, I can see them, or I can feel. If I might not see, I mean, many people see because of dearth of rooms. But if not, I might feel or I understand that they get physical as well. So both are okay. This concept of certain abuses are okay or abuses are okay till a certain limit is the first point where we need to address. That is where we start going wrong primarily. That is childhood. There might be family crisis which might lead or which might make a person become a little abusive. The person might have seen, as I said, I mean, domestic violence. The person might have had some physical or mental illness. Trust me, people with chronic, prolonged physical illness do start out of depression, do start becoming so frustrated that they can end up being a little abusive as well. People who have been neglected, people who have had the history of being abused as a tradition, I mean, it's gone on and on and on, or people who have had marital conflicts. Now, there might be many more. I could just think of a couple, and I just wanted to share these couple of things because I have seen as a psychologist that these are the issues which tend to make people become abused pretty much. What are the causes of abuse? There can be stress in that person as well. The person can be fatigued. And the same person who otherwise probably might not have been abusive, being under stress, being fatigued, might suddenly become very abusive. Now, a person who's otherwise not abusive, suddenly becoming abusive, if we find such people, we have to address the stress or the anxiety part of it, not necessarily to try to find out whether the person is quote unquote by nature abusive or not. Lack of parenting skills, Buladi was mentioning. I mean, my only wish till, I mean, before I die is, if possible, to open up a parental training institution because I strongly believe that parenting is not something that comes to us naturally. Just because we are born as human beings, we can become parents, or just because we get married, or we live in, or we give birth to a child, we can become parents. It is not at all so. I'm not claiming that I've been a fantastic parent, but I've tried to be as logical as possible. I'm sure I've failed in at many a times, but I've tried to be as logical as possible. Similarly, we all need to try to be as logical as possible while parenting. Hence, parenting is a skill. As very, very correctly pointed out by Buladi, parenting is not something that comes to us naturally. Parenting is a skill because in most cases, what I find in my chamber is that parents get frustrated on their children. They take out all the frustration on the children, and when they cannot control it, it's then that they bring their children to us. So parental training is very, very important. And in case of romantic relationships, inferiority might be a major, major cause of being abusive. I feel that you are one up me. I feel that you are better than me, and somewhere deep down, I cannot accept it. So I try to impose my superiority. Now, there's no complex called a superiority complex. The only complex is inferiority complex. And to combat our inferiority complex, we try to impose superiority on others. And that is what might also lead to us being a little abusive. Now, since we are running short of time, I'll just go through a little bit of effects of abuse and how to deal with it. Effects of abuse: either starving or throwing up or overeating, feeling like not living, very, very depressive. I mean, a lot of depression can sink in. Feelings of self hatred. I am good for nothing. I'm not worthy. I'm not worth of, I mean, living. Very low self esteem, which again Buladi had mentioned. Very low confidence. Withdrawal. People might withdraw. Totally. Withdrawal here does not necessarily mean only withdrawal from romantic relationships. Withdrawal means I'm talking about a disconnect, a total disconnect, dissociation. That's what I mean. Anxiety and depression. So, I mean, people who get abused can get into very, very severe depression. So, how do we need to deal with it? First, we have to validate the fact that we have been abused. Many a times we don't even realize that we are being abused. We have to validate, we have to accept the fact to ourselves that yes, this is an abuse. Period. As long as we don't accept it, we cannot do anything about it. To resolve anything, we first have to accept it. So we have to validate. Then we have to intervene. We have to understand our own emotions. Again, Buladi had mentioned in one of the points that when I'm being abused and yet I'm staying in that relationship, why? What is it in that relationship? What is it there in that relationship which is compelling me to stay back in the relationship despite understanding that I'm being abused? Which means when we are weighing, when we are scrupulously weighing, we find that there is something that I'm getting from the relationship. What is that and why is that so important to me is something which we have to figure out. Otherwise, we cannot resolve abuse. And the last point here, what I would like to mention is what Tapati Madam was also telling. We have to know our rights when we are being abused. We have to know our rights. We have to know what we can do about it. Because many a times, especially in our country, many a times, what happens with women is that they are not aware of their rights. They don't know where to go to. They don't know whether, suppose a married woman being abused, and she might feel that if she gets back to her parents, she will not be accepted. Trust me, however harsh it might sound, in 90% of the cases, that is what happens. Parents are far more okay, pardon my saying so, with the dead body coming back than the girl coming back from the quote unquote sasural. Because when the dead body comes back, they can lament, they can mourn, and they can say she had tried her level best to accommodate, to adjust. But when she comes back as a person, parents feel that they have a lot to answer to the society. It's a stigma. So even the person who's abused, now here, this is a problem here, that the person who's abused is looked down upon and the abuser moves freely. I look forward to a day, I look forward to this generation to bring out, to bring in that day. I mean, I strongly feel I'm an optimistic person, so I want to live till then. There a day when at least certain parts of these things will be eradicated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Subarnadi. On your optimistic mood, we also look forward, and we have few questions for you all. The first question is for Bula ma'am. It is, how do we do the demarcation between abuse and being a parent guide to a growing child of approx 8 to 9 years old?
I just missed a little bit part. Can you just repeat?
Sure, ma'am. How do we do the demarcation between abuse and being a parent guide to a growing child of approximately 8 to 9 years old?
The person who has asked the question has any specific thing in mind, because it's a general kind of question. what kind of abuse the child has been inflicted upon. Is there any clue on that?
No, ma'am, there is nothing as such.
Okay. Well, then the parent has to know. If we can follow a link from Topoti also, that the parent has to know that the child is considered an individual from the legal point of view. That child is not considered a kid, that something can be inflicted on the child, whatever the parent thinks. So if the parent wants child to behave in a particular way, according to parents' understanding, then parent has to negotiate, not coerce the child. If the parent coerces the child, it's an abuse. If the parent negotiates his her desires, aspirations with the child will understand better because the parent is not forcing. The question of force or coercion is actually the basis of the abuse. Because the parent thinks, here comes the question of power. Because the parent thinks that all most parents think that we are more powerful, which is a fallacy. That is not the truth. Powerful people always think we are more powerful than the less powerful people. But in the end, it seems a lot of people, after a lot of suffering, the powerful people also realize that they are not that powerful because there are more powerful people than the powerful. So if it is like that, then the adult must understand that one day the children will go out and might give it back. We have a lot of elderly abuse now. We have been hearing it, then reading it, we are attesting it. So the parent must understand that he or she should give a fair deal to the child. So if he or she expects a fair deal back from the child. So the whole conception of abuse depends on actually how the parent thinks. Do they think children as their partners, as friends, to understand, to negotiate, to appreciate, or the parent thinks that my property, my child, my property, whatever I will tell you, listen. So that makes that boundary of between abuse and non. It's a general question, so I had to answer generally.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there is another question from one of our participants. What is the long-term effects of the abuse to the sexually abused kids?
Sexually abused kids' long-term effects means, if we just say in one line, the whole life will be miserable.
Absolutely.
Because sexual abuse is the greatest harm which should happen to a child. Because the child often doesn't understand, but realizes later on. So when the child doesn't understand and cannot express, it actually affects the child very negatively. So when the child realizes at some point that, oh, that happened to me, this is what the uncle and the so and so for dada was actually behaving, and that's that. And that makes the child withdraw, lose interest, unenthusiastic about life itself. And it has the longest negative effect on the children's ability and esteem, and also the apprehension. See, the children who are sexually abused are generally apprehensive, fearful of the risk of the significance of the risk which is going to come. Because once abuse means might think that might be abused. So a question of trust is gone, uh, faith is gone, and what we should say that spontaneity in relationships are highly affected. So a person who is abused at childhood is the worst thing that could happen. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you, ma'am. Hope our participant has listened to your answer. My next question is to Shubharnadi. Is it so that abuse has become so pervasive that we don't even realize it?
It is very much so. If you ask me, is it so? My response will be, it is very much so. Because the problem is that it has actually, this pervasive is the right word. It has actually become so pervasive, it has actually gone so much into our system that till a point, we don't even consider an abuse to be an abuse. I have had such cases. I had the opportunity of working with the West Bengal Women's Commission for some time. I mean, as a consulting psychologist, I used to go there once a week, and I have seen people who used to come after after having a married life of say 30 35 years, and the first point was that my husband is very good. He is a little, I mean, he has anger issues. Right from the beginning, he used to slap me once a while, but that's okay. So, the fact that even one slap is an abuse, they don't even realize that. It has gone into their system that a person who feeds you, যে ভাত দেয় সে মারতেও পারে, the person who feeds you, the person who is so-called your shami, ami, the problem is that that person can slap you. And they used to accept it. And what I used to feel bad about is that then when they're coming to us after 20, 25, 30 years, where, I mean, at what peak has it reached? Because these people were okay with certain abuses. There are many people who accept certain verbal abuses quite naturally. It's okay. Baba ma gadha bolechen, it's okay. I mean, what's a big deal about it? The problem is psychologically, I mean, we know that the problem is that we say it's okay, it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. It is a big deal in our unconscious. It gets repressed in our unconscious, and it gets manifested in different kinds of behavior, which we will never attribute the cause to this, but the actual cause is this. We have the manifestation, but the shadow parts remain there. So these are reasons, very much reasons. And yes, it has actually become so pervasive that people don't even, I mean, understand abuses as abuses.
And can I just add one, two sentences to this?
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Maybe all of us have seen the movie Thappar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thappar has made a point that one Thappar is enough.
Absolutely.
That's one of the best Bollywood production, I would think. That Bollywood even had come to the fact, some of them, that to say that, giving a slap to your wife has nothing to do with how much you love her, how much you adore her. Because love will never allow you to give a slap. Because this is what Shivana is telling us. This is called naturalization of harm. We normalize it. It is like saying women can cook, clean, so women can also take some beatings. The surveys tell us that 66% of women think it's kind of natural. One or two thappors, sometimes a push, a shove, it's all right, because after all, but if it happens reverse, then there is something else. So in case of women, it is always naturalized. It's okay. Women are, we are, by birth, we know how to suffer. Suffering is the other name of the women, especially in India. Mother is, they can do everything. Sharbam Shaha can get to everything. We can suffer. So suffering I glorify. The glorification of suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, that is exactly what the problem has been, that since childhood, the social training has been the glorification of woman suffering, woman sacrifice. All these have been so extensively glorified that women take pride in that. Women take pride in tolerating. Women have been taught to take pride in tolerating. And women who don't take pride in tolerating are considered to be quote unquote too progressive and, I mean, difficult for others to aggressive.
Feminist.
Absolutely.
And that feminism is sometimes a derogatory word in India.
Yeah, most of the time.
Stay away. So that's the problem.
True, well said, ma'am. My next question is to Taupati ma'am. Is there any protecting law for emotionally abused people till before it reaches to physical abuse limit?
Before Taupati unmutes herself, Domestic Violence Act 2005 covers emotional abuse also, not only mental abuse also, not only just the physical violence. It covers that. 2005 Domestic Violence Act.
Yes.
Yes, Tapuji,
Yes.
I do remember you very well. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Buladi.
Okay.
What Buladi said, that is right. Our Domestic Violence Protection DVA Act, uh, it's mentioned about the emotional abuse. But what I am trying to say, that when we are going to forget the justice of these children, it is not considered. And the woman, usually, it is very difficult for them to prove how they emotionally or verbally abuse, because physical abuse there is a mark. Sexual abuse you can get the medical report, but the emotional abuse or verbal abuse, it is very difficult to prove. I am working mainly with the little girls, small kids, and for them, what Buladi said, I am totally 100% agree. They want sexual abuse make whole life miserable. They don't get justice. Usually the perpetrator gets free, they got bail, they are free. And this pandemic situation where uh, we are very happy with the online, all the perpetrators are getting bail on online, and our judges is very happy to give them the bail, because the correctional home situation is not satisfactory. They might be affected by the COVID. So this is the cause. So what I am trying to say, that whatever law, limited law we have, the mental health issue is very uh, rarely addressed, and we are not very much equipped ourselves how we address this issue. I know in a very high profile school they have their counselor, but if you go to the village, where is the counselor? Most of the sexual abuse happen in the paddy field, the open space, in the villages. Not, I am not telling that in the city it is not happening, but in the village, I am totally a grassroots level worker, and I have seen that in a law that is not implemented in the remote part of the village, everything, the infrastructure is not there. They are not access to justice. Nothing is there, and mental health issue, it is the dream to them. It is a it's one kind of beyond their imagination. So that is all. So we have to campaign on the mental health issue, from every school to adolescent girls, to not only girls, the adolescent, to everywhere. We have to campaign what is the need of the mental health. So now we have Onnesha. I am sorry, there is a Onnesha. But if you meet any Onnesha, Onnesha is a post created by our government, who is supposed to take care of the reproductive health issue in different schools. But I am sorry to say that the quality they have, they don't have that kind of skill to address this reproductive health issue in the school. Building, and what Shubhona said, I am totally agree that we should know about our rights. We should know how to report, whom to report. Every woman should know. Every children should know.
Right.
If anything
Yeah,
happens
true,
to
ma'am.
me,
Right.
wrong.
Right. Thank you.
How,
Yes.
where I will go, how I will go, and whom to report and how to report. That's all.
Yeah, true, ma'am. It
Thank
is
you.
very necessary to know where to report, when to report, and how to report. So,
And
my next,
Anama, let me add just one line, that in
yes, ma'am.
during this last 6 months of COVID-19 pandemic, the worst sufferer are the ones, women and children, who stayed with abuse partners. abusive partners. World Health Organization has issued advisory to every government that you have to take special care because a huge domestic violence has increased. Huge, just from online reporting. So that shows actually the intimate relationships are not working. Why should it be increasing? Because they are staying too close, 20 more hours than they used to stay. So that is one of the serious questions which has shown us that the relationship between the partners are actually problematic. Global issue. This is not an own Indian issue. India is having more, but this is a global issue. It has happened even Sweden, even Scandinavian countries, where we think it's almost heaven for gender equality.
Yes, ma'am. So this is my last question to Shubharnadi from one of our participants. There are kids who see their parents abuse each other, either to learn and repeat the abuse or stand against the abuse. How does this difference happen?
Okay, very nice question. The thing is that this difference lies because of the ego strength of their personality. There are people who themselves have been beaten up very brutally and they beat up their children as well. There are people who themselves have been beaten up very brutally and they decide not to slap their children or child and not to slap them even once. So it depends on how you logically reason it out and how strong is your ego. If you see abuse, when you're seeing it, whether you accept that to be okay or whether you feel that no, actually, this is wrong, that will depend very much on your personality pattern, your ego strength. That makes the difference.
Yeah, right. So here we end our session, and I would hand over to Anishadi. Thanks to all our speakers. And one more thing before handing over, I would like to add that we had Dr. Mohit Ranodit with us today as one of our speakers also. But due to some technical internet issues, he couldn't join us. Thank you. Over to you, Anishadi.
I thank all our distinguished guests for sharing your insights about the topic. Now I would request Mr. Dipankar Sen to give the vote of thanks.
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. It gives an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks to our speaker who honored this webinar throughout this webinar with their enlightening and inspirational thoughts. I would also like to thank all YouTube viewers for being with us and throughout this webinar and giving their valuable messages and comments on this chat section. And I shall convey my heartiest congratulations to all of my co-members of Manav Zameen Foundation, a Psycomm Education Initiative. Thank you once again. Stay home. Over to
Thank you.
Anisha.
Before we wind up, I would like to inform you that the feedback link for today's webinar is shared in the YouTube chat box. Kindly fill that up and send that back to us. You can also write to us at manavzameen@gmail.com or on our Facebook page, that is Manav Zameen Foundation, for more queries. The registered participants shall receive their e-certificates within a week. Let me also take the opportunity to inform you that Manav Zameen Foundation is going to organize a workshop on dance movement therapy, the details of which will be shared on our social media pages very soon. Keep an eye on our Facebook page and remain updated about our upcoming events and services. You can also find us at www.manavzameen.com. That is our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you again. Good night for today. See you sometime soon. Stay healthy. Stay safe.